The rain hammered the orphanage steps like fists on a locked door, and there I was, not even 6 months old, bundled in a threadbare blanket with a note pinned to my chest that read, "I'm sorry, kid. This world's too hard for us both." Dad's truck roared away into the Brooklyn night, taillights bleeding red like an accusation I couldn't yet understand, leaving me screaming into the void where family should have been. 28 years later, those same screams echoed in my throat as I stood in a crowded Manhattan bar. The words, "I'm gay," tumbling out to a room full of strangers, shattering the silence I'd built my life around, and unknowingly cracking open the door to the man who'd abandoned me. They say New York chews you up and spits you out, but for me it started with swallowing whole. Growing up in that drafty orphanage on the edge of Flatbush, I learned early that love was a currency you couldn't afford. Sister Agnes, with her rosary beads clicking like a metronome of judgment, would gather us kids around for bedtime stories that always ended with redemption for the straight and narrow. Me? I was the quiet one in the back, sketching airplanes in the margins of my Bible, dreaming of escape routes to anywhere but here. Puberty hit like a subway derailment. Sudden, chaotic, and full of secrets that burned hotter than the summer asphalt under my sneakers. By high school, I'd buried it deep, fostered out to a family in Queens, the O'Connors, who treated me like a polite obligation. Mrs. O'Connor baked apple pies that tasted like obligation, and Mr. O'Connor grunted approvals over my straight-A report cards, never noticing how I flinched at the casual homophobic jabs from his poker buddies. I dated girls, sweet, bewildered girls who deserved better than my half-hearted kisses behind the bleachers. It was survival, pure and simple. College at NYU on a scholarship felt like freedom's first breath. Art classes where I could paint the turmoil swirling in my gut. Late-night walks along the East River watching the skyline pulse like a heartbeat I was finally claiming. But coming out? That was the detonation. It happened on a sticky July night in 2023, at a dive bar in the village called the Rusty Anchor. I'd gone there with a vague itch for connection, nursing a cheap IPA while a drag queen named Ruby Red belted show tunes that peeled back my defenses. The crowd was a mosaic of faces, tattooed arms slung over shoulders, laughter cutting through the haze of cigarette smoke seeping in from the alley. I was sketching on a napkin, the lines blurring into a face I couldn't place, when this guy, tall with salt and pepper hair and eyes like storm clouds, slid onto the stool next to me. "Artist?" he asked, voice gravelly from too many Marlboros and unspoken regrets. I glanced up, heart stuttering. "Trying to be." He nodded at my drawing. "Looks like regret. The good kind. The kind that makes you better." We talked for hours. His name was Patrick, a contractor from upstate who'd come down for a job site in the Bronx. Divorced twice, no kids he mentioned, but there was a weight in his silences, like he was carrying ghosts in his toolbox. He bought me another beer, shared stories of building high-rises that scraped the sky, and for the first time, I let slip fragments of my own jagged edges. The orphanage, the foster shuffle, the fear that coiled in my chest like barbed wire. When I finally said it, "I've known I was gay since I was 12, but saying it out loud, that's new." He didn't flinch. He just raised his glass. "Takes balls, kid. World's full of cowards who never do." That night blurred into a walk through Washington Square Park, fireflies of phone screens lighting our path. He didn't kiss me, didn't push. It was deeper than that. A recognition, like two puzzle pieces from different boxes clicking despite the odds. By dawn, we'd exchanged numbers, and as he hailed a cab, he clapped my shoulder. "Don't let the bastards grind you down, Bryce. You've got fire in you." I didn't see him for weeks after that. Work swallowed me. Freelance graphic design gigs for indie bands, scraping by in a shoebox apartment in Bushwick where the walls thrummed with neighbors' arguments. But Patrick's texts kept the ember alive. Dry jokes about leaky roofs, links to articles on queer artists who'd changed the game. Felt safe, uncomplicated. Until the dream started. Flashes of that orphanage note, the truck's taillights, and Patrick's face morphing into a stranger's, accusing me of something I couldn't name. Fall crept in with its crisp bite, leaves carpeting the sidewalks like confetti from a parade I wasn't invited to. We'd planned to meet again, this time for coffee in Soho. I arrived early, nerves jangling, ordering a black coffee that went cold as I waited. He showed up disheveled, flannel shirt untucked, eyes shadowed. "Rough sight today," he muttered. but his grip on the mug was white-knuckled. Over lattes and awkward pauses, he opened up. Born in '68, raised in a steel mill town outside Pittsburgh where men didn't cry and love was for women only. His own coming out had been a quiet implosion. Whispers in dive bars, a marriage to cover the cracks that shattered anyway. Left a kid behind once, he said, voice cracking like thin ice. Thought I was doing right by him. Dropped him at a place in Brooklyn. Figured the world would be kinder without a screw-up like me dragging him down. The air sucked out of the cafe. My pulse thundered in my ears. What was his name? He looked at me then, really looked, and the pieces slammed together. Bryce. Named him after my granddad. But I never stuck around to see him grow. I bolted. Coffee sloshing over the rim, napkin sketches scattering like accusations. Outside, the wind whipped my jacket, but it couldn't cool the inferno in my chest. Patrick, my father, the man who'd handed me my first taste of vulnerability in decades, only to reveal he'd been the one who'd primed the bomb. I ghosted him for a month, buried myself in work, pounding canvases with acrylics that bled rage and confusion. Friends noticed. My roommate, Lena, a fiery lesbian from the Bronx who bartended at the Rusty Anchor, cornered me one night over takeout lo mein. Spill it, Bryce. You're painting like Picasso on a bender. So I did. The whole ugly knot. The orphanage drop-off, the note I'd memorized like scripture, and now this ghost from my sketchbook materializing as the father I'd cursed in therapy sessions. Lena listened, chain-smoking menthols, then pulled me into a hug that smelled like cheap perfume and unwavering loyalty. That's some Greek tragedy shit, but you're not the villain here. Call him, or don't. But don't let it fester like bad takeout. She was right, of course. Festering was my specialty, years of it building walls thicker than the ones Patrick built for a living. But something in me, that same fire he'd seen, demanded more. I texted him on a whim, late November, as snow dusted the fire escapes. We need to talk. Not coffee. Real talk. Meet me at the orphanage steps. Midnight. He showed. Parked his beat-up Ford F-150 curbside. Headlights cutting the dark like hesitant spotlights. I was there first, huddled in a wool coat against the chill. The old building looming behind me like a judgmental sentinel. Footsteps crunched gravel. And there he was, hands jammed in pockets, breath fogging the air. Bryce! He started, voice raw. I didn't know. Swear on my life I didn't connect it till that night. Your eyes. They're mine. Always knew I'd see them again someday. But not like this. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Like what? As the son you dumped because you couldn't face your own shit? That note. This world's too hard for us both. What the hell does that even mean, Dad? The word hung between us, a guillotine blade. He flinched, then stepped closer, the scent of sawdust and regret wafting off him. It means I was scared. 28 years ago, AIDS was ravaging communities. Reagan's America was pretending we didn't exist. I was 25, fresh out of the closet, working odd jobs to scrape by. Your mom. God rest her. She was my beard, my safety net. When you came along, so tiny and perfect, I panicked. Thought I'd ruin you. Pass on my curse. So I ran. Left you with the sisters. Hitched to upstate. Built a life of straight lines and straight lies. Tears froze on my lashes. And Mom? What happened to her? Overdose 6 months later. Pills. She never forgave me. His voice broke, and for the first time, I saw the boy he'd been, terrified, alone. We stood there as the clock tower chimed one. The city symphony of distant horns underscoring our silence. I wanted to hate him, to walk away and let the wound scar over. But his eyes, my eyes, held a plea that mirrored my own buried ache. Why now? I whispered. Why show up in my life just to blow it apart? Because life's too short for more regrets, he said, pulling a crumpled envelope from his jacket. Found this in my attic last month. Your baby picture, clipped from a newspaper adoption ad. Been carrying it like a talisman. Then I met you, and it all clicked. I ain't asking forgiveness, Bryce. Just a chance to not run this time. I took the envelope, fingers brushing his. Rough, calloused hands that built empires but couldn't hold a family. We talked till dawn, words tumbling like the first snowflakes. Stories of Milltown Christmases, my foster holidays with store-brand turkey, the men we'd loved and lost in shadows. By sunrise, the orphanage steps felt less like a grave and more like a bridge, shaky, but spanning the chasm. That fragile truce carried us into winter. Patrick started small. Sunday brunches at a diner in Midtown, where he'd grumble about my fancy artist coffee, while sneaking glances at my latest sketches. He'd show up at my gigs, nursing a soda in the back while I designed posters for queer film festivals. It was awkward, laced with landmines. His offhand comments about back in my day, my knee-jerk defenses, but underneath, a rhythm emerged. Like jazz in a smoke-filled club, improvised and alive. Lena dubbed him the Prodigal Pops, teasing over beers that he'd better not ghost again or she'd key his truck. And Patrick? He tried. Shared Polaroids from his closet days. Grainy shots of lovers in leather jackets, pride marches before Stonewall's echo faded. One night, over ribs at a Harlem soul food joint, he admitted the betrayal that still stung him deepest. Not just leaving me, but erasing us both to survive. I built walls for other folks, but mine were the highest, he said, sauce staining his fingers. Tore him down brick by brick, but the foundations cracked. I nodded, the weight of it settling. My own walls had kept me safe but solitary. Coming out had been my sledgehammer. Meeting him, the rebuild. Spring thawed the ice between us. Patrick's job wrapped, but he lingered in the city, crashing on a buddy's couch in Hell's Kitchen. We took a road trip up the Hudson, his idea, to see where the river bends without breaking. Windows down, Springsteen blasting Thunder Road. We talked betrayal's sharpest edges. How I trusted foster dads who bailed for better prospects. How he'd been outed at a job site and blackballed for years. Laughter crept in too. His botched attempts at texting emojis, my horror stories of orphanage pranks. But drama doesn't bow out gracefully. It was May, cherry blossoms shedding like pink regrets along the FDR Drive. When the conflict ignited, I'd landed a big commission. Murals for a queer youth center in Chelsea, vibrant scenes of resilience that poured out my soul. Patrick showed for the unveiling, proud as punch in a button-down that strained at the seams. The crowd was electric. Activists, kids with fresh piercings, reporters snapping pics. As I unveiled the centerpiece, a father and son bridging a chasm with intertwined hands, he froze beside me. Then, from the back, a voice sliced through. Patrick? That you, old man? A guy in his 50s, broad-shouldered with a buzz cut and a veteran's limp, pushed forward. Eddie, Patrick's ex from the 90s, before the marriages, before the deep freeze. Heard you were back in the game. Painting pretty pictures don't make up for the mess you left. The room hushed. Patrick's face drained of color. Eddie, not here. But Eddie was fire and brimstone, voice booming. Not here? This your redemption tour? Dropped your own blood like yesterday's trash. Then ghosted everyone who loved you. I waited years, Pat. Years. Murmurs rippled. Cameras flashed. I felt the betrayal vicariously. Not just Patrick's past clawing back, but the public unraveling of our private mend. Kids stared wide-eyed. A reporter thrust a mic. Bryce, is this man your father? Care to comment on the abandonment? I grabbed Patrick's arm, pulling him through the throng to the alley out back. What the hell was that? He slumped against the brick, lighting a smoke with shaking hands. Eddie, we were everything back when it was life or death to love like that. I left him too after the drop-off. Couldn't face the mirror. And now? You drag me into this circus. His eyes met mine, stormy. I didn't drag you. You chose the bridge, Bryce. But if it's too much, words failed. I stormed off, the mural's colors mocking me from the windows. Betrayal layered on betrayal. His history bleeding into mine, turning our reconnection into spectacle. Days blurred into radio silence. I holed up in Bushwick, Lena force-feeding me pad thai while I raged on canvas. Blacks and reds swallowing the light. The climax hit 2 weeks later, a humid June night that crackled with thunder. Patrick's truck idled outside my building, wipers slashing the downpour. I watched from the fire escape, rain soaking my shirt, as he sat unmoving, head bowed. Lightning forked the sky, illuminating the envelope from that first night. My baby photo, clutched in his fist. I descended, splashing through puddles to his window. He rolled it down, rain pooling in the sill. "Go home, Dad. Whatever this is, it's poison." He didn't. Stepped out, jacket slick, voice cutting the storm. "Poison? Yeah, that's me. Been it since I held you that first night, knowing I'd break us both. But Bryce, son, I've spent decades running from that truth. Can't run from you." Thunder rolled, drowning my retort. He pressed the envelope into my hand. Inside, not just the photo but letters, dozens yellowed and unsent. To me, from age 1 to 28. "Dear Bryce, today I framed your smile from that ad. Wish I could build you a treehouse. Dear Bryce, lost a bid today, but thought of your artist's hands, stronger than mine. Dear Bryce, if you're reading this, know I love you fiercer than any storm. Tears mixed with rain. Why write them if you never sent? Because love's a blueprint, not a build. Took me till now to lay the foundation." He pulled me close, embrace awkward but ironclad. "Eddie was right, I left messes. But you're the one thing worth cleaning up. If you'll let me." The dam broke. We stood there, father and son, as the sky wept our history clean. No grand gestures, no Hollywood fade. Just two men, flawed and forging, under New York's relentless mercy. Summer waned into a tentative normalcy. Patrick sublet a place in the East Village, closer to gigs, he said. But we both knew it was proximity. We navigated the minefield. Therapy sessions where a soft-spoken shrink from Columbia unpacked our baggage. Joint brunches evolving into game nights with Lena and her girlfriend, who grilled him mercilessly over charades. He even tried art class, his sketches lopsided but earnest, capturing the Hudson's Bend with a tenderness that surprised us both. The youth center mural became a touchstone. After the scandal fizzled, Eddie aired his grievances in a viral tweet storm that painted Patrick as the villain. But queer media spun it into a redemption arc. We added a plaque. For bridges built late, but built true. Kids approached me with stories of their own fractured families. And Patrick, hovering nearby, would nod, sharing snippets without stealing the light. Betrayal's shadow lingered, a reminder that trust is mortar, not stone. Once, over beers at the Rusty Anchor, he confessed a final ghost. "Your mom. She knew about us, about me. Begged me to stay, said we'd raise you right. I chose fear over her faith." I clinked his bottle. "And now? Faith in what?" "You," he said simply. "Us." Autumn returned, leaves turning gold like second chances. We drove to Pittsburgh, root-seeking pilgrimage. The mill stood shuttered, a rusting relic, but the house, his childhood home, was still there, sagging porch and all. He showed me the room where he'd first kissed a boy under quilted covers, voice thick. "This is where it started, and where I learned to hide." I traced the wallpaper seams. "Hide and seeks over, Dad." Back in the city, as Thanksgiving loomed, I hosted turkey from a Queen's market, Lena's mac and cheese, Patrick's lumpy mashed potatoes. We toasted to the orphanage steps, to the bar stool spark, to the letters that bridged decades. No perfection, just presence. Laughter over burnt pies, quiet talks on the stoop about the men we'd become. In the end, reconnection wasn't a knot untied but a tapestry rewoven. Threads of pain and passion, betrayal and balm. Dad, Patrick, stayed, not as savior or specter, but partner in the mess. And me, I painted on, colors bolder, knowing the deepest hues come from shadows faced together. In America's vast, unforgiving heart, we'd carved a small, stubborn space. Father, son, survivors. Human after all.